So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time within 30 minutes. Now, look, if you are following this lecture series regularly, then it saves a lot of your time because through this lecture series, you don't have to spend your entire day reading the newspaper, right? So, within 30 minutes, you cover your entire day's current affairs through this lecture series. Now, the thing is, you just have to watch this lecture series and revise it. Please make sure that you don't just spend 30 minutes watching this lecture series, you also spend the necessary time, around 20 minutes, revising this lecture. Because through revision, you'll be able to remember these current affairs for long periods of time. Okay? It is very important if you want to etch these current affairs in your memory for long periods of time. Now, where can you revise these current affairs from? Well, along with this lecture, we are going to share the notes of this lecture, and these notes shall be shared on our Telegram channel. Now, where can you find our Telegram channel? Just below this video in the comment section, I have shared a link to our Telegram channel. All you have to do is just click on that link. It will take you to our Telegram channel, and from there you can download the notes for this lecture and spend the necessary 20 minutes revising this lecture. So 30 minutes of watching this lecture and 20 minutes of revising it. And in about 50 minutes time, you'll be done for the day as far as current affairs are concerned. Your entire day is freed up. Now you can spend that entire day covering other parts of your UPSC syllabus like polity, geography, history, economy, and others. Okay, so make sure you make this lecture series a part of your daily routine. All right, enough of the introduction. Let's straight away jump into the discussion. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics we are going to cover in today's lecture. So here's the list of today's topics. Number one is Places of Worship Act 1991, because recently Supreme Court gave a significant judgment which relates to Places of Worship Act. Okay, so we have discussed Places of Worship Act in the previous lectures, but we are again going to refer to it, and we are also going to talk about the recent Supreme Court judgment. Okay, then recently Union Cabinet has cleared two bills. One is a constitution amendment bill and one is an ordinary bill, so that one nation, one election becomes a reality. So these two bills would make sure that one nation, one election becomes a reality. So we'll talk about this. Then recently a report came out which was authored by FICCI, an industrial chamber. Okay, and they said that in India, real income growth has slowed down. Now, what is real income? We'll talk about this. Okay. Then we'll talk about another point of dispute between Hindus and Muslims, and that relates to Durgadi fort in Maharashtra. So we'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about universal health coverage because 12th December is International Universal Health Coverage Day. Okay. So we'll talk about universal health coverage. Does India provide universal health coverage? And what sort of problems are there in India's healthcare delivery system? We'll talk about all these issues. All right. So let's begin our lecture, starting with topic number one, which is Places of Worship Act. Now, we have talked about Places of Worship Act before, right? But recently, Supreme Court gave a very significant judgment. And this judgment bears significance for different disputes related to places of worship. Okay, whether a particular place is a Hindu place of worship, whether it's a Muslim place of worship, is the mosque currently that is standing in a particular place was built on the ruins of a Hindu temple? Should it be a Hindu temple? Should it be a Muslim mosque? All these disputes that are going on and that are proliferating right now. This judgment by Supreme Court bears significance for that. Now, what did the Supreme Court say? Look, the Supreme Court barred civil courts across the country from registering fresh suits challenging the ownership and title of any place of worship and from ordering surveys of disputed religious places until further orders. Now, this order by Supreme Court applies to the existing civil suits as well as already pending civil suits. All right. Now, the thing is, you need to know a bit of background about this Supreme Court judgment. Okay, you need to have clarity over this issue. Okay, so we need to get into a little bit of background. Now, the thing is that we all know what Places of Worship Act is. So, the Places of Worship Act says that any place of worship, whether it's a temple or a mosque or a church or a gurdwara, its religious character won't be changed. The religious character that was there in that place on 15th August 1947 shall remain so, and no claim of changing the religious character of that place would be entertained. So, if a particular place was a mosque on 15th August 1947, then it would stay a mosque. Okay. The claims made by Hindu organization or any other religious organization that this mosque was built on a destroyed Hindu temple or any other place of worship, religious place of worship, won't be entertained. That particular place of worship, that the religious character of that particular place of worship was challenged before 15th August, well, then we can entertain it. But 15th August 1947, the religious character of a particular place of worship shall stay as it is. Nobody can challenge it. Which means that if there is a mosque and that mosque was built on destroyed ruins of a temple, and that temple was destroyed by Mughals, well, it will stay a mosque. Nobody can challenge it. But there was an exception put to this law. That exception was the Babri Masjid dispute. So the Babri Masjid and Ram Janmabhoomi dispute was an exception, okay, because that case was going on in the Supreme Court. All right. Except the Babri Masjid dispute, all places of worship shall stay as they are. Okay. Now, many religious organizations and many Hindu community groups were not happy with this law. Okay. So they challenged this law. A constitutional challenge was placed on this law, that this law is violative of the constitution. All right. And what happened was that in 2022, Supreme Court's Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud gave a verdict. He says that if somebody challenges that a particular Eidgah or a particular mosque is built on a temple, right? And uh, the authority asks Archaeological Survey of India to determine whether it was built on a mosque or not. That task by Archaeological Survey of India is not a violation of Places of Worship Act. So Places of Worship Act basically bars changing of religious character. But you can have a survey whether that place was built on a temple or not. So survey is not violative of Places of Worship Act. Therefore, D.Y. Chandrachud ji allowed the civil courts all over India to entertain petitions to determine the religious character of that place before a mosque was constructed. And this opened a Pandora's box. Not almost, but many Muslim places of worship were being challenged in courts of law, in civil courts, and those civil courts admitted those petitions and ordered ASI to survey the place. It caused a big Hindu-Muslim dispute in Sambhal also. All right. Now, because Supreme Court allowed survey of a particular religious place, basically a mosque, whether it was built on a Hindu temple or not, that's why many petitions were filed. Now, Supreme Court has made it clear in 2024 now that till the matter related to constitutional challenge of Places of Worship Act, because currently a constitutional challenge to Places of Worship Act is ongoing in Supreme Court, till the Supreme Court comes out with a decision on Places of Worship Act, no petition shall be entertained. In 2022, D.Y. Chandrachud allowed those petitions. But now Supreme Court says that no petition, existing civil suits as well as pending civil suits won't be entertained till we come out with a verdict on the constitutional validity of Places of Worship Act. Okay, this is the entire dispute. And this is the significance of the recent order by Supreme Court. Basically, it overturned D.Y. Chandrachud's 2022 order. Okay, so what is Places of Worship Act? I've made it clear. It was enacted in 1991. Places of Worship Act was enacted, which said that religious character of a place of worship will remain as it was on August 15, 1947. The only exception to it was Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid dispute. Okay, so Ayodhya dispute was kept outside the purview of this act, but this act said that any other dispute won't be entertained. But in 2022, D.Y. Chandrachud said that if a court of law orders a survey of the site, that is not violation of Places of Worship Act, because we are not changing the religious character. It will stay a mosque. We are just calling for a survey. Okay. Now, currently, Places of Worship Act is being challenged in the Supreme Court on the basis of it being violative of Indian Constitution. So what is this constitutional challenge? Now, the first petition challenging this act was filed in 2020. 5 more filed subsequently. Okay, 5 women filed suit in Varanasi, Kashi Vishwanath temple, seeking permission to pray at Gyanvapi Mosque. Okay. Then DY Chandrachud said that, look, surveys are not equivalent to changing religious character of places of worship. So surveys should be allowed. Okay. We want to know whether that place was built on a temple or not. But yes, religious character won't be changed because Places of Worship Act says so. But petitioners have challenged the validity of this Places of Worship Act. And their challenge is based on two grounds. First of all, they say that Places of Worship Act actually takes the power away from the courts, the power of judicial review. The law takes away the power of judicial review by abating claims that existed at the time of passing the law and prohibiting fresh claims in courts. Courts should be allowed to review each and every dispute on its own merits. Okay? But this Places of Worship Act actually takes away the power of judicial reviews. Courts cannot entertain petitions. That's what Places of Worship Act says. And that is what people are saying, that it is violative of constitution. Okay? Then the challengers have said that the date of this law, and what is the date? 15th August. Okay? 15th August 1947 is an arbitrary date. It's arbitrary in retrospectively picking 15th August as the cutoff date for determining the religious character of a place of worship. Okay? Now, this date is arbitrary, and there is no basically any reasonable grounds for choosing this date. So, that is why, on these two grounds, the petitioners challenge that this law is unconstitutional. Now, the matter is in Supreme Court, and Supreme Court will take a call on it. But till the time Supreme Court comes out with a judgment, no fresh suits regarding the survey of a mosque or any other place of worship shall be entertained. Okay, this is what the judgment was. All right, this is the topic. Now let's move on to second topic of the day, which is one nation, one election. So the Union Cabinet approves two bills that will set the ball rolling for ushering in simultaneous elections for Lok Sabha and state assemblies. Okay, we all know that the current government wants simultaneous elections for center as well as states. Okay, currently state elections happen on a different date than central elections, but the current government feels that it wastes a lot of public money, it wastes a lot of time. Therefore, simultaneous elections should be the case. Now, for simultaneous elections to take place, well, we need to amend our constitution. Okay, so there are two bills that the government has introduced in the parliament. One such bill is constitutional amendment bill, and the other bill is an ordinary bill. Okay, so first bill is constitutional amendment bill to enable joint elections to the Lok Sabha and all state assemblies. The other is ordinary bill, which is related to elections in union territories of Delhi, Pondicherry, and Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, because we need to align their elections also with central elections. Now, the government aims to introduce these bills into the parliament in the current winter session alone. Once the bill is introduced in the parliament, it will go to joint parliamentary committee for further examination. Okay, and then after examination, it will be put to vote in both houses of parliament, and then it shall be passed. Okay, now one is constitutional amendment bill. So this bill would require two-third majority in both houses of parliament. Okay, the other is ordinary bill that would require 50% of the votes. Now, what are these two bills? Okay, now these two bills are based on the recommendations of Ramnath Kovind Committee. Government had formed Ramnath Kovind Committee to examine the issue of one nation, one election, and Ramnath Kovind Committee. Ramnath Kovind was the former president of India. So this committee gave certain recommendations as to how can the government go about introducing this concept of one nation, one elections, right? And government accepted all these recommendations. Okay. Now the Constitution Amendment Bill would make changes to Article 82, 83, 172 of the Constitution. Okay. Article 82 of the Constitution basically mentions the term limit of Lok Sabha. Okay. Article 83 talks about delimitation, how seats would be divided. Okay. And Article 172 again talks about term limit of state assemblies. So all these three articles need to be amended for one nation, one election to become a reality. Okay. Now, what the constitutional amendment bill says is that after next election that would happen in 2023, 29, sorry, in the next central election, union elections, as soon as the Lok Sabha gets elected on the first day of the new Lok Sabha in 2029, President of India will announce a date. Okay, And that date, President of India will make an announcement. And based on that announcement, it will say that the next elections that are going to be held, 2034, okay, will be one nation, one election. So after next elections, the president will announce that the next elections, that is 2034, would happen in the format of one nation, one election. Now, if there are state assemblies that are elected in 2033, well, their term would be cut short to 1 year only, so that in those states also elections happen in 2034. So, if enacted, the bills will cut short the terms of state assemblies that are elected after the appointed date to align them with the term of Lok Sabha. Okay. Now, Ramnath Kovind also made one recommendation. Under Ramnath Kovind committee, well, they said that simultaneous elections should not happen only in the case of Lok Sabha and state assemblies. It should also happen in the case of local body polls, the panchayat polls, right? But these two current bills do not address the issue of local polls. They would happen on their own date. Currently, the government is targeting central and state elections. Okay, more on this issue. The cabinet did not consider any draft legislation to align local polls with Lok Sabha and assembly elections, which was the recommendation of Ramnath Kovind panel. The reason for that is that it would require another constitution amendment bill. Okay, and because that constitutional amendment bill, which will talk about aligning local body polls, would encroach upon the powers given to states in India. Therefore, that constitutional amendment bill would not only require two-third majority in parliament, it would also require ratification by 50% of states in India, and that would be a difficult task. So that is why currently government has brought about only one constitutional amendment bill which will align Lok Sabha and assembly elections, because that would require only two-third votes in parliament. Okay. If things go well, then the government will decide upon on local body polls also. But local body polls would require a constitutional amendment, which would also require ratification of 50% of states. Okay, so the current bill would introduce two major changes. It would introduce Article 82A, Clause 1, which states that President will notify the appointed date on the first sitting of Lok Sabha after a general election, and the next general election would happen in 2029. Article 82A, Clause 2. This new clause will also state that state assemblies elected after the appointed date would be curtailed to align with the end of full term of Lok Sabha. Okay, so this is the entire issue. Further details would come out when these bills would be tabled in the parliament. Okay. Next topic is related to slowdown in real income. So recently, a industrial body called FICCI and Quest Corp Limited, Core Limited, they said that wage growth rate across six key sectors, so income growth rate across six sectors like IT, retail, logistics, FMCG, banking and financial services, engineering, manufacturing, process infrastructure, they have been low single digits over the past several years. So over the past several years, these six sectors or employees of these in these six sectors have not seen much income growth. Okay, income growth has been in low single digits like 4%, 5%. And when their income growth is adjusted for inflation, it is found that their real wage growth, real income growth, was either negligible or negative. Now, I have introduced this topic in today's lecture to explain to you guys the concept of real income. Okay, there are two types of incomes: nominal income and real income. Okay, now let's suppose you earn, and hear me out first. Let's suppose you earn 1 lakh rupees per month, and your cost of living expenses is 50,000. Okay, so you earn 1 lakh every month, and your entire expenditure is 50,000 per month. So you save 50,000 every month, right? Now let's suppose you get a 10% increment. So your wage increases, your income increases by 10%. Okay, now you're earning 1.1 lakhs, right? Make sense? So you'll be happy. You'll say that I have gotten a 10% increment. Good. And that 10% increment is nominal wage growth. Okay. So you got a 10% increment, that is nominal wage growth. But in the meantime, inflation also rose by 10%. So the things you bought, uh, which costed 50,000, now cost 55,000. So earlier you used to save 50% of your money, right? Now you're saving, well, 1.1 lakh minus 55,000. Now you're saving another 55,000. Okay? Because what happened was you got a 10% increment, but inflation also increased by 10%. So now you're saving 55%. Again, your savings has been is 50% of your income. Earlier, when there was no inflation, you saved 50% of your income. Now, too, you are saving 50% of your income. Your income is 1.5 lakh. What is 50% of 1.1 lakh? 1.1 lakh? 55,000. Okay. So, in real terms, your income hasn't grown at all. Makes sense? Because earlier you were saving 50% of your income, right? Now, you think that you're earning 10% more, but your cost of living has also increased side by side. So, you're again saving only 50% of your income, right? So, in real terms, you haven't gained at all. Your real income growth is 0%, right? So, this is what is real income. Okay. So, when your income increases by 10%, but inflation also increases by 10%, then in real terms, you haven't gained anything. Okay. Had the inflation been 0%, then you would have gained 10%. But your nominal wage increased by 10%, but inflation also increased by 10%. So your real income growth is 0%. Right? So basically, what is real income? Real income is income or income adjusted for inflation. Okay. I used to earn 100 rupees every day, and my expenses were 90 rupees. Now my expenses have increased by 10 rupees. Now it's 100, but my income grew by 5%. So I earn 5 rupees now, 105 rupees now. I might feel that I'm earning more, but actually speaking, I'm just saving 5 rupees. Earlier I was saving 10 rupees, right? So in real terms, I haven't gained at all. In nominal terms, I have, right? So this is the concept of real income. Real income is income adjusted for inflation, right? And that has declined as per FICCI. Nominal wages have grown so slowly that inflation has eaten up your savings. And that's why your real income is negligible or, well, negative, right? Now, what are the consequences of such a situation? Well, household consumption has declined because people are not saving anymore. So their consumption expenditure has declined. Unemployment has also increased. Well, the reason why real incomes have declined or nominal incomes have not grown that properly is because of lack of jobs also. In fact, new workers are adding to the labor force every day. Labor force participation rate has increased from 49.8% to 60%. But there are not enough jobs to give to these people coming into the labor force every year. So these are the problems. Again, this is not important. Consequences are not important. The reason why I got this topic into today's lecture was I wanted to explain to you guys the meaning of real income. Okay. I hope I have explained that to you. All right. Let's move forward to fourth topic of the day, which is Durgadi fort dispute. So Durgadi fort dispute has a history. Okay. In 1960s, this became a disputed site between Hindus and Muslims. Okay, it became a hugely disputed site. Hindus claimed it for themselves, Muslims claimed it for themselves. Okay, so therefore in 1966, Maharashtra government intervened and said that this land does not belong to Hindus, it does not belong to Muslims, it belongs to the government. Okay, Maharashtra government intervened, but Muslims protested. They said that we have been offering prayers at this site for centuries, for many years. And therefore, by taking away the ownership of this land, you can't deny us the right to worship. Okay? So Maharashtra government said, okay, this land belongs to us, but we will allow you to pray. Muslims, we will allow you to pray on this land twice a year. Okay? So your prayer rights won't be taken away, but yes, this land's ownership belongs to us. And Maharashtra government also satiated the demands of Hindus. They say that your festivals would also be honored on this land, Navratri festival or any other religious festival. Okay. Maharashtra government said that we will allow you to worship on this land, but this land's ownership belongs to us. Okay. Durgadi fort. But Muslims still protested and they challenged the ownership of Maharashtra government on this land. Now, they filed a suit in 1976, and it has been almost 50 years that this matter was in court. Recently, the civil court came out with a judgment, and they say that Maharashtra government's claim on this land is stronger, and therefore should be allowed to prey on this land, but the ownership does not lie with them. The ownership lies with the government. So basically, the legal dispute was between the government and Muslim community, and as per the recent judgment of a district civil court, government has won. Okay. Now this conflict has been going on in from 1960s. In fact, it brought about a lot of communal tensions also. On September 20th, 1968, Shiv Sena founder Bal Thackeray unfurled a saffron flag at Durgadi fort in Kalyan. So this fort is in Kalyan. Okay. A long site of contention between local Hindu and Muslim communities. The dispute has continued till present, and recently, Kalyan Civil Court ordered that this land belongs to Maharashtra government. Their uh, claim is stronger. Now, why is this site in Kalyan a point of dispute or a site of dispute between Hindus and Muslims? Surely it has a lot of historical baggage. So let's talk about that historical baggage. All right. Now, Kalyan is a place that is around 50 kilometers northeast of Mumbai, and this fort, that this Durgadi fort, lies almost on the banks of Ulhas River that flows through Kalyan. Okay. So this Durgadi fort is 50 kilometers northeast of Mumbai, and it was a prominent trading port of the Bijapur Adil Shahi Sultanate, the Deccan Sultanates. Okay. So Bijapur Sultanate, Adil Shahi Sultanate, during their rule, they were Muslims basically. During their rule, this was a prominent trading port. And this we know because of various British documents. As per the British documents, during the rule of Adil Shahi Sultanate, this fort had a Muslim tomb, a prayer place, a mosque. Okay, but in 1760, this was captured by Marathas, and these Marathas made many changes to this fort. First of all, they changed the name of this fort to Durgadi Kila. Okay, they built a small wooden temple dedicated to goddess Durga just behind the mosque. In fact, they tried to change the Jama mosque into Ramji temple also. Then in 1818, the British defeated Marathas and took control of this fort. And from then onwards, uh, this place was in ruins basically. Okay. Uh, and yes, there is a lot of history to that. Okay. But Muslims continued to pray on this territory even during the British times, 2 times a year. Okay. Now, what happened then? In 1960s, well, Hindus and Muslims clashed. Well, local Konkani Muslims claimed that they had been offering Eid prayers at the fort for centuries. But Hindu community also questioned the right of Muslim community to have this place exclusively to themselves. Hindu community said that we also have the right to pray at this place. Okay. Now, Maharashtra government intervened in 1966, and they said that the government is the actual owner of the property. But the government said that Muslims would have the right to offer Eid prayers, and Hindus would also have the right to basically celebrate their festivals. But the ownership of this land lies with the government, and through an order, Maharashtra government gave this land to Kalyan Municipal Council. Okay. Now, in 1976, Muslims challenged this order. They said that we don't just want the right to pray at this location, we want ownership of this land because it has been with us, with our ancestors for centuries. Okay. And then the case went on. Okay. Recently, the not Supreme Court, Kalyan Civil Court ordered that the claim of Muslim community is not that strong, claim of government is strong. So they ruled in favor of Maharashtra government, basically. This was the issue. All right. Okay. And last topic of the day is universal health coverage. Well, why we are talking about universal health coverage? Because Universal Health Coverage Day is celebrated annually on December 12th and promoted by WHO. Now, December 12th was the date. December 12th was chosen because it marks the anniversary of the first unanimous UN resolution calling for all nations to provide for their citizens affordable quality healthcare. Now, the thing is, you need to know this. What is the meaning of universal health coverage? Okay. So UHC definition says that everyone, everywhere, can access to the health services they need without risk of financial hardship. Okay, universal health coverage means that all citizens, that's what we mean by universal, all citizens have the right to get quality health care, and without the risk of financial burden. Okay, so everyone has the right to quality healthcare, whether they're rich or poor. Now, this was made a target under Sustainable Development Goals also. Okay, now India did take a step towards universal health coverage in India. Okay, and that step was taken through Aayushman Bharat program. Okay, so Aayushman Bharat program was launched in 2018, and this program had two components. One, the government would open in different locations in India health and wellness centers. Okay, these would be primary healthcare centers. Okay, which would provide first aid and some medicines. Okay, basically it would provide 12 services: BP checkup, health checkups, and whatnot. Okay, so government would establish health and wellness centers across the country, and then the most significant part of Ayushman Bharat program was Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana (PMJAY), under which insurance cover of 5 lakh per year will be given to 50 crore poor persons. Okay, so poor people, because of lack of money, they are unable to get access to good quality healthcare even in private hospitals. But now poor people will have Ayushman Bharat card, and if they are feeling ill, if any of their family member is feeling ill, they can go to good quality private or government hospital, tertiary hospital, okay, big hospital, and show their card, and they would get free health services up to 5 lakh per year. So this is basically health insurance for them. So through this, by providing health cover to poor people, government took a step towards universal health coverage. Okay, but still, India's healthcare has many problems. Okay, first of all, lack of financial resources. Okay, Indian government spend around 1 to 1.2% of their GDP on healthcare, whereas WHO says that every country should spend around 3% of their GDP. Because government spends so less, then people have to spend. Okay, therefore, out of pocket expenditure of people, of patients, is very, very high in India. It continues to range between 45 to 54% of total health spending, as against the sustainable development goal of 20%. So the 45 to 54% of total spending on health comes from people's own pockets. Now that shouldn't be the case. Sustainable development goal says that it should be 20%. Rest of it should be taken care of by the government. Then there is poor human resource planning, lack of availability of skilled people at different levels of healthcare. For example, community health centers have 30 beds per 1 lakh population. That itself is quite less. And there is a vacancy of specialists at a rate of about 80%. So 80% posts of specialists in community health centers, they're lying vacant. Okay, and that pushes people towards private hospitals. Then people do not opt for these community health centers because they think that doctors are not available. Therefore they go to private hospitals, and private hospitals charge a lot of money. In fact, there is a rise of private healthcare, especially with respect to high quality multi-speciality hospitals, which are called tertiary hospitals. In fact, 50% of tertiary healthcare is taken over by private hospitals, or are provided by private hospitals. Now the thing is that because there's a lot of cost in establishing a private hospital, okay, it has led to corporatization, commercialization, and profiteering in these private hospitals. These private hospitals are following unfair practices to charge the customers, because first of all they have to recover their cost, because cost of establishing a good hospital is quite high. Plus, these hospitals take funding from big investors, and these investors need returns. So that is why these hospitals have to follow these unfair practices to overcharge their patients, and this is a problem. Okay, so these are the problems in India's healthcare. And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. Please do not forget to revise this lecture, because it is only through revision that you will be able to remember these current affairs. On that note, I'll be signing off. Thank you so much, everyone.